my involvement in drugs began from a really young age. Basically from the day I was born, pretty much. I mean, my dad was smoking hash, around the house. All of his friends, well, a lot of his friends were smoking hash or weed. And then I get approached by a student who I'd become friendly with, who asked me for cocaine. And I'd never dealt with it before because I'd seen people taking it and it used to just make them paranoid. I just didn't like it very much at that time.
Mhm.
But the money factor, I suddenly realised that I could make a hell of a lot of money.
What's up, guys? I chatted with Pieter Tritton this episode. What a phenomenal guy, a phenomenal story. He was an international coke smuggler for years. If you're sensitive to violence or anything like that, just giving you a trigger warning right here, because his story is insane.
So I was constantly surrounded, not constantly, but I was surrounded by the drug culture of the end of the 70s. So a lot of hashish being smoked, a lot of probably LSD being taken. I think there was a bit of coke floating around. And I first ate. I was given a piece of chocolate cake at the age of 4, and my mum didn't realise it was laced with hashish and a lot of hashish, and I got completely wrecked at the age of 4. So I started dealing drugs, shall we say, so trafficking drugs within the country at school at the age of like 13. Um, there wasn't much money at home, and my mum had become quite a heavy alcoholic. It was very heavily dependent on alcohol, and that was very difficult to deal with. So I in the back of my mind was like, I want to make the situation better. I want to get her a house and take her away from this and get her help with the drinking, and also just get some money for myself so I can buy myself some clothes I like. And so start, you know, selling hash and weed. Literally start with a quarter, what would it be in 7 grams of hash, and then buy an ounce, which is like 28.3 grams. And it just escalated to it wasn't big when I was at school. I mean the drug dealing. I was constantly selling hash and weed throughout the week. And then come the weekend, like Thursday, Friday, people would start asking for ecstasy, LSD, amphetamines for the weekend, for the illegal raves that were invariably going to happen every weekend somewhere in Britain. At that time, there would be a massive illegal rave of like minimum 3 or 4 thousand people. Huge. Started selling, started selling, all the party drugs, but not cocaine. That came much later. Did very well at school. I was, not blowing my own trumpet, but I am quite intelligent. So I got all A's and B's at my GCSEs, which is like college for you guys. So I get good grades. I then moved from the school that I was at in a town called Tetbury, which King Charles has his country house of Highgrove is literally 3 miles down the road from where I went to school. So
Wow.
and I grew up right next to Princess Anne. Her estate was on the edge of my village, so I used to walk my dog across her land. So I'm surrounded by royal families, so a lot of money in the area, a lot of pop stars, musicians, film stars, and they're all doing loads of cocaine. It's what they do. And I then moved to a college to do A levels, but I get thrown out of college in my probably midway through my second year because someone had informed on me, grassed me up, ratted me out for selling drugs on the college premises. So the police came and raided my family home. So I get arrested. My dad and stepmom at the time were in France on holiday. When they eventually phoned, they weren't very happy about the fact that I'd
Mhm.
been caught. But when my dad got back from France, he was like, "Well, you should have done it better. If you're gonna do it like this. Don't do that. Don't do this." So I was
Wow.
expecting to be like, smack, smack, smack. Don't fucking do this, you know. But it was all mixed signals, and it was like, you know, if you could, and I remember at the age of like 14 or 15, getting stoned with my dad smoking weed in France at a friend of his house because he was like, "Well, if you're gonna do it, I'd rather you do it with me." Anyway, I at this point, the shock of getting arrested and the threat of what that might cause for my future and the possibility of losing my place at uni or the possibility of going to uni just stopped me dead in my tracks. So I stopped dealing and I stopped going to the parties, the illegal raves. I stopped taking drugs because obviously I was taking LSD and amphetamine, and not in massive quantities, but well, some people would probably call it massive quantities. But so I go off to uni, I get my A levels, get four offers from different universities around the country. So I had an offer from Southampton, one from Bradford, one from Liverpool, and one from Cardiff. And this was to study archaeology. Yeah, so I have four offers from all these different universities, and I a big influence on my decision to go to Cardiff University was the fact that it was close to home. And because of my mother's drinking, I was worried about leaving my sister, who is 4 years younger than me. So I opted on going to Cardiff University, and I get there, and I'm not dealing at this point. I'm not, not taking drugs, not selling drugs. But I go into the halls of residence. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of students have obviously just been released from home. They're all,
Yes.
they've never taken drugs. Suddenly they're free, and they're all running around trying to find drugs. And of course, I know where to get them. So, and there were a couple of people there from Stroud who knew me. So they immediately came to me and were like, "Can you still get drugs?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, obviously I can. Like, whatever you want." And they were like, "Well, look, there's loads of students here. None of them know where to get anything. You can make a lot of money really easily." And it was just too much of a temptation.
Right.
And trying to survive on a student loan in Britain is not easy. The amount of
Right.
money that the government give you to go through university, most of it is a loan anyway. So you're coming out of uni with about 100 grand in debt, and 50 to £100,000 in debt. And like I said earlier, I didn't have much financial backing from my family. If I hadn't done, I probably would have done read medicine and become a very good doctor because I'm that way inclined. I just have a feeling I would have been a very good doctor. Anyway, that didn't happen. I became a doctor of a different kind. I became the party doctor. So I start bringing small parcels of drugs back down from Stroud to Cardiff, starting off with like 50 pills, maybe an ounce of amphetamine, some hash, 50 LSD trips. And that sold like that. Seconds gone. And then I get approached by a student who I'd become friendly with, who asked me for cocaine. And I'd never dealt with it before because I'd seen people taking it, and it used to just make them paranoid or arrogant or very talkative. And I just didn't like it very much at that time.
Mhm.
But the money factor, I suddenly realized that I could make a hell of a lot of money from selling cocaine. And this guy, this student, explained to me he kind of showed me the ropes almost. He said, look, this is what you should look for. This is what's good. This is what's bad. He said, look, go and get me half an ounce of cocaine. I've got all these people around me who've got loads of money. They all want coke on a regular basis. Go and get half an ounce of cocaine from your dealer back in Stroud. We'll see if it's any good. And if it is, we'll buy off you every week, if not every other day. So I was like, cool. So I ring back to Stroud, get put in contact with the local coke dealer, and come back with a half an ounce of cocaine, which had been cut, adulterated, but there were lumps in it. So that this student, knowing his shit, takes out a lump and he says, "This looks really good." And he crushes it up and it does a line and he goes, "Wow, this has come straight from a kilo. This is absolutely pure, 95, 96% pure cocaine. The powder in here is cut." He said, if you can buy us the uncut cocaine, we're willing to pay a bit more, but just buy it pure. So I rang up the dealer back in Stroud and I said, look, I'll save you the time and effort of cutting it. I'll just pay you a bit more money. Just sell it to me pure. And he was like, cool, that saves me a lot of hassle. And if you're happy with that, and I was like, yep, definitely. I want the best quality at the best price. And unbeknown to me, he was really well connected to a guy from Oxford who was connected to the people that were bringing it into the country. So I was 2 steps away from the people importing tons of cocaine by yachts on private yachts through from northern Colombia. So these guys were massive, and I very quickly realised that the coke I was getting was was the best cocaine in Britain, and because I was so close to the source, it was at the best price, and I could beat anybody else's price. So I start getting friendly with local dealers at the nightclubs in Cardiff. I then start selling to them, and then I say, look, let's ask the people that were previously supplying you if they would be interested in talking to me about me supplying them. So the amounts are just increasing from that first half an ounce to now I'm dealing half a kilo. Then I'm being asked for kilos, then multiple kilos within months. And it goes from like 50 pills to being asked for 10,000, 20,000, up to 50,000 pills weekly. The pressures of university and trying to deal with all of this just became too much. And I unfortunately dropped out of uni in my second year, which I regret to this day, and became a full-time drug dealer basically. Some weeks I'll be travelling back up to London with 300,000, 400,000 pounds in a holdall to pay the people back, pay them, get more drugs, take more drugs back down, and it was just then a cycle. As soon as they realised they could trust me, I just moved up the ladder really quickly. So yeah, so I drop out of uni. I moved to Cardiff, where my girlfriend at the time had started a course in teacher training. So I rent a house. She moves in with me. Um, I've already met a few dealers in Bristol by this point, so I'm now dealing to a load of dealers in Wales, and it's pretty stressful. Anyone that thinks drug dealing is easy and simple needs their head examined.
Right. And Pete, what I guess the good thing about it was you were making good money. Is that why you stayed?
Yeah, yeah, obviously. I mean,
Right.
some days I'd make 10,000, 20,000 pounds or more in like a couple of hours.
No way.
I mean, my turnover monthly was easily in the millions, yeah, a million or two easily, because
Wow.
I was selling weekly. it must have been at least three or £400,000 worth of drugs a week, at least. I was spending a lot of money on flash hotels, cars. A young guy, spending like 2 or 3 grand on a hotel room for a night and stuff like that. Just doing crazy shit, eating in expensive restaurants, traveling quite a lot, going all around Europe. Uh, yeah, so spending a lot of money as well. But then,
Wow.
then start coming the problems. People start, not paying. So I'm now having to cover people's debts because debt collecting is just a whole other problem. And as soon as you start kidnapping people and chopping bits off them, or hurting them badly, or threatening their families, the police are going to get involved very quickly, and then you can't sell drugs. And it all just it was very stressful. I had a stomach ulcer by the age of about 21.
Wow. And so when were you constantly afraid of getting caught?
I mean, that was a big part of it for me, was the thrill of evading the police and outwitting them and outsmarting them and beating the system. That was a massive, massive part of why I enjoyed it so much. I've compared it to playing a game of chess because I always liked chess. I always liked card games, strategy games, and to me, it was just like an all in poker game where you put all your money on the table, your pots, that all of your pot is on the table, and you're playing for high stakes. And I was playing for my life. I was gambling with my freedom. I was gambling with my life, and eventually I got caught. Walked into a surveillance operation on somebody else, and I get arrested at the age of 23, I think. At this point, I'm living in the wing of a Jacobean manor house, 5 bedrooms. It's had its own grounds, gravel driveway, a lake, a pet swan, woodland. In a beautiful valley of outstanding natural beauty. I remember I paid the estate agent 6 months in advance in cash, went to their office and gave them a bundle of money like this. 6 months cash, rent, there you go. And then the estate agent was like, I've never seen this much money in my life. If you were to do that nowadays, the police will be there in minutes. So I spent 2.5 years in prison in Britain. During this time, I'm not doing anything in prison, but I'm meeting people. Um, but I was in Parkhurst, which is equivalent to Alcatraz. It's a prison on the Isle of Wight, which is now for is at that time it was a high security prison for high security prisoners like myself. But now it's a prison for paedophiles. But at that time, it was like being in Alcatraz because it's on an island on the Isle
Wow.
of Wight. So they sent me to this fucking prison on an island in the English Channel. Yeah, so they sent me to Parkhurst. My co-defendants, so the other people involved in the case, they all end up down there with me. And one afternoon, one Sunday, I think it was, I'm reading the Sunday Times or a newspaper, and I come across an article about this method of impregnating cocaine into plastic, and I was just like, "Wow, this is genius! This is the future of drug trafficking." It didn't show up on an X-ray. It didn't show up on the scanner. The dogs couldn't smell it. Someone had spoken. Someone had told them it was in there. That was the only way they'd found it. So I was like, this is like, I'll repeat myself, the future of drug trafficking. Bearing in mind, this is 25 years ago. This method still works to this day. So I got my co-defendants around me and I said, look at this. This is going to be the future of drug trafficking. Oh, listen, the police are coming. Can you hear that siren?
Ah,
Hi, I'm here.
You're like, I've served my time.
You must have heard me. I must have been speaking too loudly.
Yes.
So I say to my co-defendants, look, the old way that we were doing it is done. We can't go back to that because when we get released from this prison, we're going to be under heavy surveillance. So they were. So I said to them, look, if I ring you up, um, don't say anything on the phone because all the phones are going to be tapped. Just come and meet me face to face. You'll know why I'm ringing you because it'll be about this. Because this is the only thing, if we go back to dealing drugs, this is the only thing I want to do. Just this. Import cocaine straight from South America, cut out all the middle people, get it impregnated into plastic in South America, send it into Britain, we'll extract it, and we'll sell it wholesale to one or two people and make a lot of money. And they were like, yeah, sounds great if we decide to go back to drug dealing. Cutting a long story short, I started painting and decorating, which as you can see, I'm still doing now
Yeah, still doing.
because I learned that in prison. So,
Wow.
so I get out, I start painting and decorating, and you imagine going from earning 10, 20,000 pounds in like a couple of hours to earning £150 a day, not even £1,000 a week. It was difficult for my brain to adjust to this. And what happened was I had one bad client who didn't pay me on time for some work I did, decorating work. And it just pissed me off that much that I went, it was one of those bad days. I just went, you know what? Fuck it. I've had enough of this shit. So I made that call. I said, come and meet me. You know why I'm ringing. So the guy from Oxford came and met me. And I said, look, go away, go out to London, talk to your contacts. Because he had such amazing contacts for everything up in London. He was a very famous musician himself. So that first of all, I buy a kilo of Coke. It's good. And then I come back after about 3 or 4 days and I say, look, guys, the actual reason I'm here is because I want to start importing cocaine into Britain. And I think you might be the people to do it with. And they said, well, look, we're actually already doing it. We're importing it in rubber in the ground sheets of tents. And the cocaine you've been buying is cocaine we've extracted from the rubber. And the rubber looks identical to the rubber you would get in the inner tube of a bicycle tire, like
Wow.
that sort of thickness, exactly like that. So it just looked like it was part of the tent. Obviously, at this time, this was quite a new technique, and like I say, it passed the scanner, the X-ray, the dogs, and they even put a chemical in there so that if they did the reactive liquid test, it would pass that as well. So we basically formed a partnership, me, the Colombian, and the Chilean. We set some ground rules, like a proper business. We laid down our business plan, basically, our business model, how we were going to do things, what should happen in the event of something going wrong, safety precautions, counter surveillance, everything, and we got to work. I went and collected the first one because I wanted to make sure it got through. And I also did it because I didn't want to start sending people to do something that I hadn't already done myself.
Hmm.
So I go to Quito, do some tourist stuff to build up a cover story. And I wait there about 2 weeks. The guy turns up from Cali, part of the Cali cartel. We do all these counter surveillance techniques through Quito to this compound where he hands me off to this huge, great 10-man tent, and I actually get stopped custom at the airport by the check-in staff because I'd completely forgotten the weight allowance. So I'd been buying my family all these gifts like ceramic plates, heavy, thick ceramic plates leather
Right.
jackets, boxes of cigars, hats. So I've turned up there with like 300 or 400 kilos worth of luggage, and they're like, "You have to get rid of some of this.
Ah,
Why don't you get rid of that tent?" And I was like,
no.
"I can't." So there's me giving away all of these gifts to people that are working in the airport, in the shops, the restaurants, the cafes. They must have thought it was Christmas, but
Ah,
obviously the staff at the KLM desk are watching me do this, and it's raised a red flag. I'm a single male to begin with. I've only been there 2 weeks. I've come in with like 30 or 40 kilos in luggage, and I've come out with 300 or whatever it was. It was loads, and I'm giving away all these gifts, but I've kept this crappy old tent. So obviously, it looks really strange. So sure enough, I arrive at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam because there was no direct flight to England, so I had to change planes. And there's a row of drug enforcement agents, Dutch drug enforcement agents. And I'm at the back of one of the queues of passengers waiting to pass them. And one of these officers looks down the line, sees me at the back, turns to his colleagues, says something in Dutch, and they all look at me. I knew right then and there that I'm getting stopped. So I was like, that's it. I'm fucked. I'm not going home. So they put me in a holding room with about 30 or 40 other people. My turn comes to be interviewed, and they were like, "What? Why were you in South America?" And I said, "Well, look, I love archaeology, so I wanted to see some archaeology. I went to this volcano. I had loads of leaflets, so I was getting all these leaflets out. It was all bullshit, a lot of it. And I was like, "Oh, I've been here, I've been there, I've done this, I've done that." Um, uh, and I was thinking, any minute now, they're just going to get this tent out and put it down on the desk and go, "And what's this?" And 20 minutes has gone by, and the guy's obviously running out of things to ask me, and nothing happened. And he says, "Oh, sorry to have delayed you. You're free to go." And I was like, "What the fuck?" Anyway, I thought, no, there must be something going on. They must know that I'm carrying. So I'm getting paranoid now. So I'm thinking they've called the British police, and they're gonna follow me through, let me come through and take down everyone like they sometimes do. Anyway, I get on the flight from Holland to England, and I get to the luggage carousel, and I'm watching the tent going round and round and round. And I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, shall I pick that tent up, or shall I just walk away from it? And I thought, fuck it. And I picked it up thinking that I was going to get dived on by loads of British police, and nothing happened. And I thought, what the fuck? And I just walked straight out the airport, and I was out and I was free. And I phoned up the guys in London, and I hadn't even told them the date that I was coming back. I thought nobody needs to know anything about when I'm coming back. So I phoned them up, and they were like, "What? You're already back in Britain?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What? And everything's okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." So take it down to London. They've got a lab set up. They've got a chemist ready. They extract it. We cut it. We repress it. And on that first trip, we each made it was over £80,000. On each trip that we were doing, we were making about £250,000. And we were trying to do one every month. So, we were spending money. I kind of learned my lesson from the first time round when I went to prison in England. So I wasn't so flash this time. I was investing the money in shares. But the Colombian, they just lost their heads. They were driving around in sports cars, having massive parties, doing loads of coke, drinking, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, this causes the problem. So I fly out to Ecuador. I send a mule back from Ecuador with a tent. They land. Unbeknownst to me, they're breaking all the rules that we've laid down. They've got people turning up there that shouldn't even be in there. They're all in there sniffing coke, drinking, partying. There's music blaring out. There's cars pulling up, people going in, coming out. And the neighbours have obviously clocked on, called the police. The police have raided it. Everybody in there's got arrested, like eight, I think 7 or 8 people, including my two partners, the Colombian and the Chilean. So I get caught in Ecuador, and I was kind of relieved that I'd been caught there. And they arrested me in Ecuador with my girlfriend who had come out for a fucking holiday.
Oh
So
my God.
they then tried to say that she was involved in everything. She wasn't involved in shit. I'd only just got back together with her. I wasn't even living with her. I mean, and the police completely framed her, fabricated evidence against her, and she ended up getting 13 years in prison in Britain, and I got 12 in Ecuador. She got arrested with me in Ecuador, but I bribed the judges, took the fall, and got her out. And I said, "Don't go back to Britain because the British police will arrest you." And she was like, "Well, why would they arrest me? I haven't done anything. I've got a young daughter, a teenage daughter. I don't even live with you. We've only just got back together. I'm not. I didn't even know you were doing this. Why the fuck would they arrest me?" And I said, "Trust me, the British police will arrest you." I actually had an apartment arranged for her in Barcelona with a Colombian friend of mine. He'd rented an apartment for her, even with a dog. It came with a dog, believe it or
Wow.
not. And I said, "Well, we'll get." I said to her, "We'll get your daughter brought out to Spain and just sit in Spain at a distance and wait and see what happens with the case in England." And she ignored this advice and went straight back to Britain. And shortly after her arrival, the police knocked on her door, arrested her. They put her on bail, but she went not guilty and got sentenced to 13 years for one receipt for some chemicals that I got her to buy that she just didn't throw away. Chemicals that are legal, not illegal chemicals. You
Wow.
you could buy them. So that, and the fact that they found traces of cocaine on her luggage. We were
Wow.
using loads of cocaine. There was cocaine fucking everywhere. It didn't
Right.
mean that she was carrying cocaine.
So did
If
she
I
go
was,
to prison?
yeah, she spent 7 years in fucking prison in England.
And so
So
tell me, you are now sentenced to prison. You said 12 years in Ecuador?
yeah, so I start bribing the judge. Straight away in the hotel room, I tried to bribe the police that arrested me. Give me a phone and I'll get like $500,000 fucking dollars sent over, or whatever it takes. I spoke some English and he said, "I'm sorry, but we can't do it because the British police are here." And he said, "What do you think we are anyway? Do you think we're corrupt?" And I said, "Are you?" I laughed at him. I said, "Are you taking the piss?"
Right.
Anyway, I get arrested. Girlfriend gets arrested. We end up in the Interpol holding cells for 5 weeks. Didn't see daylight for 5 weeks. We eventually get moved into the prison. She goes to the women's prison. I go to the men's prison. Quite quickly start building a lot of friends around me. Make friends with some people from FARC, some Colombians, and then we end up taking over, sort of almost taking over the wing that I was on. I end up start bringing cocaine into the wing, selling the cocaine on the wing. They take over the wing, they're selling it on. We buy a gun, we get a handgun with ammunition. Yeah, we were just running shit. And then we try and escape. We come up with all these crazy ideas for methods to escape, like an airlift, a helicopter airlift off the top of the prison, which was going to cost about $150,000. And I said, "No, that's too much." And in the end, we opted on digging a tunnel out of the prison because loads of people had done it before, and very, very, very nearly escaped out of there. but the
Wow.
guards got wind of it, and me and all of the Colombians, we all got split up and sent to different prisons all around the country, and I got sent to the third most dangerous prison in the whole of South America. And things were very different there. In Quito, it was more relaxed. The gangs didn't really bother you too much. There weren't really proper gangs. In Guayaquil, there were 8,000 prisoners in this prison. It was like a super prison, 25 or 26 wings, and the gangs had people on the roof of the prison, inmates with guns on the roof of each wing. They had someone on each corner with a gun, to in case of any of the other gang trying to invade the territory and take over the rest of the prison. The murder rate in there was 6 or 7 a week. The in the rubbish, they would find decapitated heads in the rubbish. Like in one bag here, there'd be a head. In another bag over here, there'd be an arm, a leg in another bag down there. Um, some people just disappeared in there. They would bury them. They would dig a hole in the cell and just dig a hole and then concrete it over, because you could get whatever you wanted in there. You could get power tools. You could get concrete. You could get tiles. If you had money, you could get whatever you wanted in there. It was like living in a town with a wall around it that you couldn't leave. So there were restaurants, hardware store, a pharmacy, just shops on every wing that you could buy pretty much anything from. Yeah, just a completely different world. And there, the gangs paid the director of the prison so that our cell doors were open 24 hours a day. So at 5 p.m. they would lock the gate to the wing, but your cell was open all night. So you actually, when you had enough, you actually locked yourself in your cell.
That's funny.
Oh, the irony, yeah. And I tell you
Yeah.
what was even more ironic was because the British police found out that I was trying to bribe my way out of there and trying to escape. They said, if you get sentenced to less than 10 years, we will extradite you at the end of this sentence to face the case in Britain. And on a guilty plea, your sentence will start at 25 years. So I actually had to ask the judge I was paying money to, please, Mr. Judge, don't give me less than 10 years. Uh, the security on me was just fucking, because they knew I tried to escape and I was the one in charge of it all. And I'd kind of taken over the wing. I owned 5 cells there that I would rent some out. I was selling coke, I had a gun. They knew all this shit. So they gave me no remission, no reduction on my sentence. So that's why I spent so long in prison. So I basically did the whole 12 years. Well, I would have done if I hadn't been repatriated, but in the end I ended up doing 10 years and 10 days exactly.
What was your mental state like in that prison? Were you constantly in a fight or flight mode?
Constantly. I literally every day I didn't know whether that was going to be my last day on this planet. I went through gunfights, hand grenade attacks. I saw a kilo of C4 in there with electronic detonators. They were walking. This is the inmates had all this. They were walking around with me with machine guns, 9 millimeters, Colt 45s, semi-automatics, hand grenades, like I said. And I just didn't know for the entire time it was 9 years and 3 months I did in Ecuador, and for every day of that time, I didn't know whether that was going to be my last day alive. And I tell you what, that does something to a person, because like in the military, at least you go back to your base and you have 3 months on, 3 months off, or 6 months on, 6 months off, and you get to go home, see your family. I've literally seen people get killed every which way you can imagine. I've seen people get hacked to death, shot, blown up, drowned, electrocuted, poisoned, um, fucking hell, just concrete block, like head crushed with a concrete block.
And so now that you're out of that prison, of course, and you're in the real world, what is your mental state like? You survived this, but you must have some trauma from everything you've seen.
Yeah, because I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, which is what it is a next level of PTSD because complex PTSD is where you can't escape from the situation and it's recurring. So it's happening over and over and over again, and you can't get away from it, which is what was happening every day. So I got diagnosed with complex PTSD, but I'm of the opinion that you've just got to get on with your life. If you've sorry to anyone with PTSD, I know it's fucking awful, and I have nightmares all the time about being in prison and loud bangs, particularly because of the gunfights I went through. Because I'm a painter and decorator, quite often I'm on building sites, and the nail guns sound like guns. And if a nail gun goes off, I'm ducking. I'm still that I'm still in that frame of mind that I need to take cover. I'm a strong believer in just getting on with life. Just when you wake up in the morning, just think to yourself, you're alive. Just be happy that you're alive, you're breathing, and you're free. And you can walk out the door, you can make yourself a coffee or a tea or whatever you drink, and you can walk out of your door and you're free. And you can do whatever you want, be whoever you want, do whatever you want.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed Peter's story. He has an Amazon book. He's writing a new book. He has a book all about his experiences in prison in Ecuador. He also has another book that he's writing. And he has a really, really, really cool video game being developed all about him. It's a computer game that he says is completely different to anything else that's ever happened in technology. So it's this new technology he's really excited about. Anyway, thank you, Peter. Thank you guys for watching.